Hello, and welcome back to Intermission.
Now I'm going to get into, these are all of my original skateboarder magazines. For those that don't know, Skateboarder was pretty much the skate publication. It was subsidized by Surfer magazine, which had been going for years before skateboarding was really what it was in the 70s. The ones that I have here, so Skateboarder ran from 65 was when the first issue came out. Then it kind of went away for a while, and then they did quarterly issues in the 60s. And then in 75, it really started up with monthly issues again, because that's when skateboarding really started to take off after the creation of urethane wheels. But the ones that I have here, I have one from 77. Most of these are from 78. Then I got 79 and 1980, which are really some of my favorite years of skateboarding, specifically 79 and 80, because you kind of get that vert explosion, some of those your favorite skaters' kind of era. Starting off, I have this one is from 77. It's got Tom Inoue on the cover. This one's super cool. It's in really good condition. It looks like he's skating. Yeah, I mean, just, he's got the Sims stickers on the helmet, skateboarder jersey, super rad. I'm not going to dig into all of these. A lot of these really are just filled with ads, but some of these will open up. Probably the ones that are hanging loose here, I'll crack open for you guys. This is another one with Inoue on the cover. This one is from May 1978. In a lot of these magazines, you get some really cool, kind of slow shutter shots. Let's see, I'm going to crack this one open because we could see the one of the sections that they did for photos. It was literally just called Focus. They're usually right in the middle of the magazine, and you can get some really cool pictures. All right, so here's that focus page, and again, this one in particular was kind of going for that slow shutter. Back then there really wasn't it's not like today where everything's focused on skate videos, video parts, and stuff like that. Everything was pretty much competition based, and really your only exposure to skateboarding was through photographs in magazines. So that being said, people took more of an artistic approach towards skate photos, and a lot of times in these magazines they would go for sort of a theme here. So some of these are really rad. You got some early grinds, some early vert skating maneuvers. Got some really, really cool close-up shots, big full-page photos. And it's just a blast from the past. I mean, for me, owning these is just owning a piece of history. These are some iconic shots. This is Lonnie Toft, who rode for Sims, and he skated. A lot of you guys have probably seen the eight-wheeler. So you got two sets of trucks, 8 wheels, incredibly hard to ride, and he was a master of those. A lot of these magazines from back then have just really iconic photos. You didn't even really have really big name pros. You just have some locals kind of getting their claim to fame, even just one photo. And that's it for the focus section there. They have other sections in here as well, like this one showcases all the skate parks. And back in 78, as we'll see in the next issue we get into, it was kind of a peak for skateboarding in the 70s. That's when you really had the most brands, the most parks. It was kind of a big fad back then. But yeah, this one's one of my favorite covers, which is why I have it. Tom Inoue was definitely one of those superstars for that time. All right, next up. So again, like I mentioned with this one, 78 was kind of a really big peak. And you can kind of see that with this issue. So this one is July 1978, so summer of 1978. This is the biggest issue of Skateboarder magazine they ever produced. It's a little over 200 pages. It's jam-packed with ads and photos and articles. You got pictures of Doug Saladino. There's some pictures of Alva in here, Stacy. This is one of my favorites here, Kirk Talbot, with a wicked frontside grind, totally lapped over. So again, skateboarding was pretty much reaching a peak at this point. And like I mentioned with The Thrasher magazines, skateboarding had kind of died. There's Salba. So a lot of these riders, a lot of these parks that closed down, skateboarding really took a dip afterwards. But this is really cool because, here's one of those Alba shots. But it's really cool because you still get to see this peak of what is essentially a totally different style of skateboarding, So this is one of my favorites, again, because you can really see that peak. It's kind of marked out a little piece of skate mag history. All right, next up, I got this one here with Dennis Martinez on the cover. Super rad shot, boards right at his head, foot cutting off his face there. Super rad, looks like he's got Crotonics wheels on there. This one is from June 1978, so it's right before this one. And again, it's a real thick issue. As we get into some of these later ones, like 79 and 1980, you'll see the differences, kind of how it slims down. But this one's super cool. Again, like the other ones, it's jam-packed with really rad shots, really cool focus pages. Here's some of your first uses of the fisheye lens, which was popular for surfing photography as well. We've got some cool pipe shots there. Again, just another classic one. This one showcases some of the awards they would do, sort of like a Skater of the Year. Super cool issue. But again, one of my real favorite covers. I think I just saw. Oh, there it is. So this one here, this is an advertisement for the Stacy Peralta Warp Tail 2 from G&S. This is the best-selling skateboard deck of the 1970s. And it was advertised, I bet you it'll say it here, but it's pretty much advertised as a board that can do anything. That can do freestyle, that can do pool, pipe, park. It's also one of the first boards to have, hence the name Warp Tail, to actually have like a molded kicktail as opposed to the wedge tails of the mid and early 70s. So it's kind of an advancement in skate technology, but super iconic board. Again, the best selling of the time. Here's another cool little piece. For pretty much all of these, I still have the subscription slip still in the mag, which shows its condition there. But it's a cool one. So here's a pretty cool little article. A lot of these skateboarders will have, sort of like Thrashers and Modern magazines, they'll kind of highlight certain aspects of skateboarding or just, new technology, that, especially back in this time, new technology that would come out. And while it's not super new, this section here highlights what they call the cult of the longboards. So, I feel like longboarding is still sort of a cult, especially in the parks, which is what this is highlighting. But back then, it was a little more common. So you got Ed Economy, who's one of the most prolific skateboarders, or prolific longboarders of the time. And it highlights some different skateboarders here, all skating really big longboards, which is really cool. One of the more unique photos from this particular section is this one here of Ray Rodriguez before he was on Powell, skating a big long Sims board. And skating them nowadays is hard enough. Skating them back then with the equipment they had definitely proved to be much more of a challenge. But again, this is back in a time where people were still surf inspired, so having a bigger board just made it feel more like surfing. It might have been Ed Economy, but I think it was Tom Sims. But either way, I heard a cool quote that said, push the front and the back will follow. So it's cool that back then people would have so many different boards. They'd have a whole quiver of things. They'd have a slalom board, they'd have a long board, they'd have a park board, freestyle. And it's cool that they showcased, the longboards here. All right, this is one of my favorite issues that I have. This one is from November 1978. So this is the later end of 1978 heading into 79. And this one's really cool because it really kind of marks the start of that transition into modern vert skating, which eventually dominates the 80s. You start getting guys, so on the cover there, I believe that's Doug de Montmorency. But we also have pictures of Brad Bowman and some of those late 70s, early 80s superstars, which kind of had a short-lived career. Eventually, guys like Tony Hawk and some of the guys we looked at in Thrasher, would start to dominate with real technical vert skating. This one in particular is really cool. It's got two pretty cool sections in here. I think Skateboarder had done a couple of these. This is the only one that I have though, which highlights, I call it quivers, and it highlights all of the top skaters' boards of choice. So we got one on Bruce Walker. We have one on Chris Stropel, which I don't have the magazine, but he's actually the first skateboarder that's actually featured on the cover of Thrasher. I think it was volume 1, issue 2. But he's got a nice array, and like I was saying with the Cult of the Longboard issue, or that section there, guys would have a whole array of skateboards. Especially since skateboarding was doing really good at the time, companies would just be flowing these guys pretty much whatever they wanted. As you can see with Chris Stropel's here, he's got boards big to small. He probably uses each one for a different spot or for different applications. This one's pretty cool with Brad Bowman. He's kind of got the whole Sims lineup. He's got an 8-wheeler, he's got a long board, he's got some wider boards, some skinnier boards. All of them, of course, covered with indie stickers. He was a big indie guy. Here's one with John Hawthorne, who has some more of like a slalom kind of quiver. Super cool. Another one of my favorite parts about this particular issue is this section here. It's called Getting Down on the Pigs. Pig boards are described as, kind of those short, stumpy, usually around 10 by 30 inches long. They were, the Dogtown was one of the first brands to kind of make wider skateboards, those big 10-inch boards that we know and love from the 80s. All started in the late 70s with Jim Muir and Wes Humpston. So we have some cool pictures here of guys skating bigger boards. And this whole article is an interview and them talking about pretty much the onset of bigger boards and how they benefit modern vert skating at the time. So we got a cool picture here. Let's see, this is Kirk Hallstrom skating a Red Dog board. Those were 9 inches wide. This is Alva skating a Tri-Logo. I believe those were 10 inches wide. And again, some of the earlier, issues that we were looking at, most of those boards were between, 7 and 8 1/4, usually really skinny boards. So to skate something really wide and kind of chunky like that was sort of new. But it offered more stability. And then, with that came wider trucks, so you had more room to grind. And it just was more conducive to where skateboarding was heading. So really cool issue. I think it's really cool because, again, it kind of marks that step in skate technology. And what cooler people to interview than Jim Muir and Wes Humpston. Jim Muir still runs Dogtown today. He's a really rad dude. And so this one's kind of a key issue to me because it marks an important time in skateboarding.
Part 2 of this episode will be dropping soon.